Alright, hello and welcome. This is Mason back with my next book. This is Kon-Tiki by Thor, Heyerdahl. And I decided that it would be kind of fitting to go to a dam for this book because it's all about like the Pacific Ocean and that type of stuff. And I've been to this dam a few times. So it's pretty chill. There's a lot of different places you can walk around and all this type of jazz. So let's get into the book. Imagine like Finding Nemo, and then imagine Finding Nemo from the human's perspective, but with Finding Nemo's journey. And you have Kon-Tiki. That's basically what the book is. Like, it starts out, I read like the good parts of the book. I didn't read the entire book. But like, take this scientific guy, like a man from like a pristine background who works in like a college. So take that type of guy, and he's questioning Polynesian folklore, and he wants to know whether or not like certain islands had the ability to be settled by like I think it was like the past Polynesian people, and there was like debate going on in their time of history regarding like whether or not it was this people or like that people, that type of thing. So he just decides to like test it, which I would assume there's other things going on that are gonna make you want to test something like that, but he did. Yeah, pretty neat thingy right here. It's so bad lighting, but I'm sorry. I'll kind of read like the back part of it. On April 28th, 1947, Heyerdahl and 5 other adventurers sailed from Peru on a balsa log raft. After 3 months on the open sea, encountering raging storms, whales, and sharks, they sighted land, the Polynesian island of Puka Puka. So yeah, it's pretty neat. At first it just basically starts out where it's like you're the average person, and like they got their own complaints. Like he talked about how he was like complaining about like leaving on time and that type of stuff. And then as time progressed, there's a quote in this book. It's not the specific quote that I have for BMBR, but it was basically like this is like right after World War II. Also, to put that in perspective, it was like all of the problems of man were something that were like unimportant, and really the only importance was the elements that you were in, and the elements didn't really seem to care about you. The elements more or less just were doing their own thing. And then it talks about how like he like kind of questioned that idea, that philosophy, and yeah. I'll read the good part. I'll read like an excerpt from it that I saved here. So basically, how like on sharks, like you see in movies, there's like the fish that cling on to the shark or like cling on to the big animal and kind of like make it its home base. And like the fish that cling on are like your children, basically, is how it turned out in this book. And the raft ended up having like their own, they're called pilot fish, and they would stay with them for like, I think most of them would stay for like hundreds of miles, like the ones that clung on, but some would stay for like a couple thousand of the, I think it was 4,000 miles that they had in total that they were doing. So we had in our retinue, I don't know how to say that, pilot fish, which were certainly in their childhood, for they were hardly an inch long, while most were about 6 inches. When the whale shark rushed off at lightning speed after Eric's harpoon had entered its skull, some of the old pilot fish strayed off over to the victor. They were 2 feet long. After a succession of victories, the Kon-Tiki soon had a following of 40 or 50 pilot fish, and many of them liked our quiet forward movement and our daily scraps, so much that they followed us for thousands of miles over the sea. So like, literally, this entire book is just, full of relationships with the different type of fish. Like it talks about, how whales would follow them across the way. It would talk about all this type of jazz. Like there was one part, it was after they were off of their homeland, they basically said that they had dolphins that would come up to them and like check their boat out every day and would like follow them thousands of miles and all this type of stuff. And this is back in like 1947, so some of the science that, you know, is around now wasn't around then. So like they would basically have these gigantic fish which would come up to them in the middle of the night and like stare them down, but like majestically, like, yo, it was just a thing, and the fish was coming up to it and checking it out, and then it would fade away. Or like, you know, like the flying fish, they would just have like flying fish come up and jump onto the raft, and like literally in the middle of the night, one time one of the guys that was on the raft had, I think it was a mini dolphin, they call them I want to say Doritos, but it's probably Dorados. So yeah, they had that show up sometimes and all this type of jazz. And they also talked about like plankton, you know, like SpongeBob plankton. And they would say like all the guys were able to keep themselves fairly entertained because, I don't know, 6 guys, I guess they have a pretty tight relationship. But they would say that if there was, you know, like if there was a time of boredom, you could literally just take all the plankton from the sea and spread it out on a part of the boat, and then look at all like the different types of colors that would arrange, and it would literally be endless types of fish. Which a lot of that is because like plankton in itself isn't a specific fish. It's just like a bunch of tiny fish species that people haven't really classified, and they're plankton, you know. And apparently they're really nutritious too. So like they also said that if you're in the middle of the ocean and you're starving, you know, dilute some of the seawater and you would be able to get some plankton out of that and make a fish soup. Assuming you can make a fire, or you can just eat it raw, which might kill you. I don't know, probably wouldn't kill you, but you get where I'm coming at with that. But he literally said that it was impossible to starve because you would literally have fish like flying on your raft, like flying fish that would jump up on your raft. But that is a little bit different than the other book that I read, which was, it was a World War II veteran. I want to get the name. Louis Zamperini, World War II veteran, who I should talk about this book later too, but he was stranded at sea for like 40 days, and there were times where, you know, he was on the brink of starvation, and they literally would eat like a bird eye and just chomp it up and all that type of stuff, and he had to fight a shark, and, you know, he had to like go 3 feet under the water because like Japanese pilots would shoot at him, and like Japanese bullets or any bullets would only go 3 feet underwater because of the pressure and all that type of stuff. So I'm guessing that was a different part of the ocean, but I could do further research on that and honestly share that book in the future. But it was just neat because like with this book, it was like a scientific guy who was just mesmerized by like the majestic features and like the majestic qualities of the sea. And it was just like, he would observe it, but it also seemed to bring out like a bit more of his human or something like that. Like, y'all will know what I'm talking about if you read the book, but that's the way I'm gonna put it. And again, like, I literally read a few of the chapters, and this is what came out of it. I read like the chapter of them leaving and the chapter of them in the sea, and then I kind of skimmed through some other parts, but like, I ain't gonna read through the entire book when a lot of it's boring, and y'all don't have to do that either. But this one also has like pictures that showed like the people that were in there and that type of stuff. So that was kind of neat. I'm trying to think of like another example. Oh yeah, dude. So like there was a sea turtle that was in like the middle of the ocean, and it talked about how there were like these dolphins that were chasing after it, and the sea turtle like was gonna climb up on the raft, but then noticed the people were gonna try and eat it, so then I like dove back in the water. Like it's an action phase, like in the ocean. Like it's peaceful, but like stuff goes down like fast, you know. So there was stuff like that. What else? I mean, I shared with y'all my favorite part from the other book, so I'm not gonna do that in this book because it'll give you a bit more of an incentive to read it. But let's just say that it goes a bit more in depth of like the fish and their relationship with the people, and it gets neat. It gets neat. So yeah. Anyways, in the future, I could try and get out here like during the daytime or something like that. That way y'all can see the dam, but for now it will remain a mystery. But yeah, you know, hope you guys enjoyed. And would I recommend this book? Yes. Mainly because it's like a scientific dude that, you know, it just kind of takes him out of what he thought was, not necessarily what he thought was real, but just his priorities change. And, you know, it's like after something like that, I wonder if you can reset fully, or if you should reset. You know, it's like just to be in that mode of being a human has so many good qualities, but like with all the stuff that goes down in life, it's hard to always do that, especially with like people always moving, which makes sense, but it's still like, it's still sad, and you gotta know when to like take your time and when to not. And it talks about this in the other book too, where it's just like, you know, everything that you need to do is on your raft or in the sea, and you got time to do anything you want to do, you know, and you don't really have any other responsibilities like you do societally here. And I think it seemed to be really refreshing to them. Like they would talk about how the sea had cleansed like their souls, and like it brought it down to a purity, and then it cleaned it. And yeah, just like the endless rolling waves apparently, and like the tinge of sea salt. So yeah, I think that would be pretty good for everyone to do, honestly. And like it sounds so cliche, like, oh, go and take a vacation, but like I don't know if it should be a vacation. It should be more or less like you know, like just be aware of what you're prioritizing, and you know, like be more in the moment, and not necessarily be more in the moment, but like change your awareness and change what you view to be super important, so that you're not like killing your body with choosing what you choose to be important. Is a good way of saying that, you know. Like I know with me sometimes I'm like, being on my phone is so easy to just, you know, like waste the time away. But it makes sense like to a certain part of my brain, but another part of it is like, oh, you know, what's going down. But in Kon-Tiki, it basically just brings them back down to a fundamental reality of, hey, you know, like this is where you are, this is what you're gonna do, this is how you're gonna fish, this is the people you're around. But it's way more chill than I'm saying it, because they were out on sea and they had all the time in the world, which would be pretty nice, but it ain't how it goes. But yeah, you know, I like you guys. Thank you for tuning in. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing out on. I think just really just observing life and listening, and from that you just know how to act. And not necessarily like you know fully how to act, but it's like you know where you're getting your decisions from. But yeah, anyways, hope you guys have a nice rest of your day, or a nice rest of your week. and I'll continue bringing out these videos so that I can fill you guys in with some of the stuff that I think is neato. So have a good one.